The Drop Alt keyboard, formerly Mass Drop Alt if you're watching old videos. I still get a lot of questions about this even now. Most people just want to know if I'm still using it. And the answer is yes, I absolutely am. It's a funny one too, because the initial review video I did on that board over a year ago got a little bit of hate, and every video I did after where I was doing some work to the board got a little bit of hate too, like it wasn't worth putting money into. So today we'll address some of the things that you might see if you're watching or reading older reviews on that board. We'll talk about the revisions that they've made to that up to this point. We'll also talk about how it stacks up value-wise in the current keyboard market, and I'll give you my honest opinion, what I feel about it after having used it as a daily driver for over a year. You ready? Let's go! I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. True story, when I started YouTube, I'd never used a video editing software. I'd never presented on camera before. I'd never even used a DSLR camera. The decision to pursue something creative can often feel like you have no idea where to start. That's where Skillshare comes in. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes for both established creatives and people who are maybe a bit curious about pursuing something creative for the first time. Caleb Babcock and Niles Gray, the guys from Moment, have an excellent class on creating cinematic video with your phone. Being able to convey information like that to an aspiring creative can help someone start to explore that path immediately without being overwhelmed by gear choices or financial commitment. Those are two of the biggest early stopping blocks for aspiring video creators. And that's just one example, one piece of valuable content from a huge resource of classes that covers whatever your creative outlet may be, plus ways to navigate the business of being a profitable creative, even maintaining your mental health and managing your productivity. New classes get added all the time, and membership is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial for premium membership, so you can start to explore a new creative avenue or find ways to streamline your existing process with Skillshare. Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching BadSeed Tech, and today we are revisiting the Alt keyboard from Drop. So the Alt is a 65% layout, and in its original low-profile form factor, currently retails for $180. That includes a set of keycaps unique to the Alt in gray and charcoal, backlit PBT, and your choice of switches, with some switches costing a $20 premium. There's also a high-profile option for $190 that's a bare-bones option, so no switches and no keycaps. These have traditionally only been available in their space gray color, so silver. You may find some Mito laser variants floating around out there on the used market. These are also now available for pre-order in black as well. And if you can't go all the way down to a 65, if you still need your function keys, they do offer the control in a TKL layout, also available in both low and high profile. All right, all that out of the way, I actually have used this board for the past year and 2-3 months maybe, on one desk or the other pretty much every day. Now, Drop has made some quality adjustments and revisions to this thing up till now, so let's go back and address some of the stuff I saw when I first saw this board that made me a little nervous. Number one, poor power handling or the board failing to power up. I have never had this issue. This board has never once failed to power up for me, nor has the control, nor my more recent Alt high profile. I did learn that if the LEDs seem dim to you, especially after purchasing a custom coiled cable, you may be able to work around that. If your motherboard has variable power USB ports, they're called like DAC up on Gigabyte boards, you can actually increase the power output of the USB ports. Just bump it up a little in your BIOS and the board can get crazy bright. Doesn't hurt it in any way I can tell either. I've been running this one for months on end just like this with no issues. Number two, poor stabilizers for the price point. This is actually a legitimate complaint. They are in fact pretty poor, pretty good candidates for replacement. You can just clip and lube the existing stabs, but I would just grab some Cherry OEM plate mount snap-ins. Screw-ins don't work, so don't bother. And yes, on a hot swap board, you do not have to completely disassemble the board to get the stabs out. That's my bad, I'll take that L. But for everyone who said it wasn't necessary to Band-Aid mod the PCB because they don't make contact, yes, they do. Despite being plate mount, they definitely do make contact in both Alt variants. And you do have to disassemble the board to get to the PCB easily, whether or not you think Band-Aid modding is worth it or not. Number three, poor diffusion on the lighting. Yep, it's pretty legit. You can definitely tell exactly where the LEDs are. I am in the process right now of doing my first real custom board, so it will be interesting to see how diffused the lighting looks on the KBD75 versus this Alt board. Number four, proprietary version of QMK firmware. Yeah, that's true. It makes it a much more involved process to do stuff like change colors or layout versus a dedicated peripheral software. But on the huge plus side, no buggy dedicated peripheral control software. It's not impossible. You'll have to do some command line stuff. It actually does support just straight up QMK, but it's going to be more involved as you're going to lose that graphic interface, and learning QMK is kind of like a skill set all its own. Number 5, this one absolutely kills me. Keyboard enthusiasts get bent out of shape because the traces on the PCB are not arranged in an intelligent and artful manner like on some of these. As a user, you never see this, and I don't believe it affects the performance of the board in any meaningful way. For comparison, here are the traces on the KBD75 PCB. I get it, it looks nice, but I don't get it. Number 6, finicky hot swap sockets. Nah, I've never had this issue, not one time. These are from Kale. If I've ever had an issue with these sockets, it's been user error because a pin on the switch wasn't straight and I bent it flat against the bottom of the switch when I plugged it in. Hot swap is a killer feature. It's what made me embrace this board as time went on, and it definitely pulled me a little further into the keyboard world. My big complaint here is that these are geared for plate mount switches, so the extra stabilizer pins aren't supported by the PCB and they have to be removed from PCB mount switches. It's not even clipping the stems, like the actual work, that bothers me. It's permanently altering the switches in a way to where I wouldn't be able or wouldn't want to install them directly on another PCB at a later time. This is the same thing you see in the glorious GMMK, and oddly, you can get full 5-pin support in like a really cheap GK61 board or any board that uses that PCB variant, like the Matrix Elite board. But anyone who tries to tell me that the typing experience, like the sound and the feel, is the same on a GK61 as it is on this board, nah. Number 7, weak magnetic feet that fall off all the time. This was true, not anymore. The magnets have been updated. The control I had with the newer magnets had no issue. If you go high profile, it's not an issue at all because there are no feet. You just get the angle that you get. I gotta say too, the high profile weighs a ton. I love this thing. Number 8 is case ping. Now, I've not had this issue on my low profile alt, but I did have this issue on the new version of the control that showed up here with the Halo Trues on it. Even now that I have V2 Xylence in my low profile, no issue, and those definitely have some spring noise to them. I also don't get a lot of it on the high profile at all. Let's listen to some Box Jades and then we'll listen to some lubed creams from Novel Keys. Come on, those creams are legit. The housings and the stems are lubed with 3204 and it's GPL 105 on the springs, and the surrounding stabs in that sound test are stock. Only the spacebar has been clipped and lubed. I really wanted to save the spacebar for the video, but out of habit, I just automatically do them as soon as they show up. I gotta say too that the caps don't necessarily fit super snug on all switch types. Box switches are really snug, but like these Xylence, I can just pull these off by hand. It's not like they fall off the board or anything though. All right, value conversation. Now this is where I think things get really interesting. We're gonna call it a price point of $180. So for $180, you can get this, or you can get something like a Huntsman Elite or a Corsair K95, which is almost criminal for boards like that. Yeah, they're full-sized. Yes, they have features, but the switch selection is very limited, and whatever switch you pick, that's it. That's the one you get. I can't, with a clear conscience, recommend that people do that. The GMMK60 or TKL bare bones will get you hot swap, and it's only 60 bucks. It's a good entry level. You still get pretty poor stabs, and you don't get USB-C for now, but I suspect the revision's getting pretty close there. A GK61 is a really viable option as an entry level as well. One of the very few that supports 5-pin switches natively. It's plastic, but it's lightweight and portable. If you really just never see yourself using hot swap, you just want a production board, Hades is a good 65%. Still my recommendation for a production 65. I don't often recommend the 1.2SF because Ducky pulled a super dick move with their proprietary sized right shift key. It's really limiting when you're looking for aftermarket keycaps. So what else does that leave currently? That's not a rhetorical question. Let me know in the comments if you know of something that I'm missing here in terms of a production board with hot swap, and I'll see if I can get a few together for a roundup video. But otherwise, we go all the way to the other end of the spectrum and we look at full custom boards. And that's the comment I get more often than any. Why are you putting all that money into the alt when you could just go full custom? Okay, cool, I get it. Let's go to KBD fans because that's where everybody starts, right? A Tofu 65 kit is $175. That's a bare bones price. No switches, no caps, no hot swap either, and no backlighting, which is a deal breaker for some people. You do get accent RGB and you do get cherry stabs, but I don't think that holds up value-wise. I personally picked the KBD 75 V2 kit, $160, and I added a brass weight for $30. No hot swap, no stabs, no backlight, no switches, no caps, $190. Plus, I had to buy a soldering iron if you want to really get technical. Or you can get an aluminum case, hot swap, accent RGB, per key RGB, 2 USB-C ports, kinda QMK compatible, one of the best keycap sets out there, and switches for $180. I don't get it. I fail to understand how this is a bad way to go. Even the $190 bare bones high profile alt will still get you a sick case and a per key RGB hot swap PCB. When you start looking at high end customs, you're basically talking $300 to get in and it goes up from there. And they're normally on group buy with some of those boards taking a year or more to come to market. And it's a different class of board because hot swap becomes more rare. Backlit is exceedingly rare. The cases though are generally like works of art. How important backlighting is to you is a personal choice, but it's also affected by your choice of switches and keycaps. Some switches restrict more light than others, and obviously not all keycaps are backlit, but some combos of switch and keycap will make backlighting close to, but not completely irrelevant. So, a full year later, do I still recommend the alt? Yes, probably more now than I did a year ago, actually, after I've experienced a ton of different keyboards. Would I recommend paying $80 more for something like the alt versus something like a Ducky 1.2 Mini? Yes, I absolutely would, and none of that has anything to do with my affiliate deal with Drop. First off, arrow keys, and second, if you have any interest at all in getting into keyboards, lubing switches, filming switches, modding stabs, even noise dampening stuff like sorbethane, you can basically learn to do everything you would do on a full custom except solder. And I mean, you throw a nice GMK set on that high profile alt, come on. This is gonna sound a little sales pitchy too, but I have to point out that Drop allows returns now. They didn't do that a year ago. I sincerely hope that I build out that KBD 75 and it blows my mind. I really wanna come back with a video and go, oh, I totally get it now. I really hope that happens, but I'm pretty skeptical. For now, the alt gets my vote and a strong recommendation. Any questions, hit me in the comments or drop by the Discord. And that's it for this time. I'm Brian P. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button. And until next time, stay up.